How's it going, people? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another AFTV live. It's been a little while, people. Apologies. We did premiere In Focus yesterday at 5, so if you haven't seen that already, make sure you check that one out and check out the whole series as well, because James has done some good work over there with the In Focus series. Still one more to go, so check out the 4 that are currently out. And I'm joined with a familiar face, someone that I haven't done a video with in a little while. Lee, what are you telling me, man?
Listen, man, good. I was thinking, when's the last time I did a little live with Turkish? And the last time we were speaking about Yuri Tillemans, Savic, and who was the other player? There was another player anyway that was thinking about to kind of replace Xhaka. So it's been a long time, bro. Listen, we've come from a long, deep, dark place. So yeah, we're here and I'm happy, man.
You say it's been a long time. It hasn't been that long. I know. But it feels like it's been long. Look at that conversation we had then. That's not even a conversation right now in a sense. So we still want a body in that position, but it's not necessarily replacing Xhaka because Jack has been one of our top 3 players so far this season.
It's crazy, bro. It's crazy, man. Listen, life's good, Yeah. Right now, life's good, man. Life's good. So,
but since we haven't talked in a little while, World Cup, what do you make of it?
Listen, I kind of spoke to you a little bit downstairs about it. I'm glad for Messi, man. I'm glad. I know, obviously, you did the watch along on your show. It was great to see that he's finally kind of got rid of any demons. No one can say anything about him. He's clocked football, and if he retired tomorrow, no one can say nothing to him. So listen, man, I had Messi as my goal. I'm sure many people had them as his goal as well. So now all the Ronaldo people that were kind of standing him, listen, man, you got to take a back seat.
It's over.
You got to take a back seat, bro. You got to take a back seat. So listen, we're here, we're happy, and it's over. We're coming to the Premier League now, man.
One of the best World Cups you've seen?
Yes. Do you know what it was? It's the quality I don't think was as amazing as people were saying. But what I did say and what I do like is the dramatic kind of the scripts were amazing. Like the Saudi Arabia beating Argentina, we saw Morocco. Obviously, everyone's spoken about that. And some of the players that are going to come out of that, I think it's going to be different from like the last 4 or 5, well, even 3 World Cups where you've had your Arshavins, you've had your Golovkins and all of those other players that have come through and maybe not being that player when they've got to their clubs.
James Rodriguez is probably
exactly that. I think the players that you can see now, I think they're going to really take the next step in their journey, in their life, and their footballing career. So I think it's good in that respect and it's good in that way. But listen, for me, I'm glad club football's back now, man. Look, international, I weren't really invested in any team. So, I mean, Argentina, as I said, Messi, I'm really happy for him. So now we're back to the realness, man. Back to the banter, back to the big 6. Back to dumping all these man's heads, bro, because we're top of the league.
Let's hope so, man. Fingers crossed. So before we move on to the subject matter on hand, Mikel Arteta 3 years in charge, what are you saying? Off the back of that World Cup, do you expect a busy January all round, not just Arsenal related, but usually after international tournaments, they usually happen in the summer, but there's a lot of movement. Do you think January is going to bring a lot of movement for some of these players?
Do you know what? I think January is going to be difficult because you see these big players that are going to be going for astronomical money, and you don't really see that kind of happening in January, do you? You normally see that in the summer, you build it up. So, for example, your Enzo, he's added on at least 30-40 million onto the price
young player of the tournament, isn't it?
Young player of the tournament. So, for me, I'm not looking at many players or the big name players that are going to move to these other big clubs, and they're going to be shelling out 120 million pounds for your Bellinghams and all these players. So it's a tough one. I mean, Arsenal, we need to buy players. There are some people some teams that need to buy players. So it's more about just seeing what teams want to do and if they're going to pull the trigger or not. If Arsenal are going to pull the trigger, Man City, are they going to pull the trigger because they've got a couple of injuries? Man United, they need a striker because of Ronaldo. So I think that's where you're going to see some of the moves. But I think some of the big boys, even though they're still young, I think they're still going to stay.
Give me a couple of players that stood out for you, and not just stood out, I mean in terms of realistic Arsenal potential signings in January. Did anyone kind of take the eye for you?
For Arsenal, no, but I did like some of the Moroccan players. When you need number 8, he was good, man. I liked him a lot. Anahi, apologies. Anahi, he was a really, really good player. And obviously he's at, I think, the bottom team in Liga. I was quite shocked about that. Also, obviously Amrabat, obvious player.
Solid.
The keeper from Morocco was really good as well. I think overall, no one for Arsenal, but what I will say is there's some players that I didn't know about. Do you know what? Even fair play. The guy that came on for France, is it Moani? Moani. Listen, he moved me a bit.
Yeah.
Listen, you know what? He moved to me, and I was talking to someone online, and they were saying, look, from what they know about him, he's not really got the technical ability. I said, look, for me, from what I've seen, because I'm not going to confess that I've seen him before, he looked really good. The technical ability looked there, and he had the pacing power that everyone was speaking
Confidence
about.
as well.
But he looked good. He looked like he could carry a team forward, you know. And listen, I'm going to talk about Bellingham, because that disaster class he put in against France. You talk about the guys that came on for France. They made against France. You see the guys that made a difference for France when they came on against Argentina. Listen, I know he's only 19, but 120 million that people are talking about, I don't really feel like he showed that to me in the big games. I know the World Cup in general is a big tournament, but he didn't really show it to me when he was up against Tuchemeni. Bro, man said come outside. Bro, got sent home
he
packing.
closed the door.
He got sent packing. So, listen, for me, I'm not saying that he's not a good player. I don't want people to go overboard with what I'm saying, but I am saying to you that I'm not looking at Bellingham right now. I'm thinking that he's worth that price tag. I think there are other players that could probably do a job and maybe do a better job at this moment in time. But listen, it's all to play for now, man. It's all to play for, and I don't want to assume that I'm overzealous because it's only one game against a very good French team.
Yeah,
man,
yeah.
So.
I see a couple of names in the chat I'll ask you about. Kudus, obviously Ghanaian, he's at Ajax.
Kudus is another one. He looked really good. I like him as well. Do you know what? That's someone I'll take at Arsenal.
Yeah.
That is, the versatility, the quality that he had. I liked him a lot. I did like him. Yeah, Kudus was someone that I really was kind of looking at.
McAllister's come up a couple of times as well. We talked about that 8 position, maybe adding an option, rotation, some depth. Do you think he's one of those ones that obviously playing for country?
Yeah,
so much that they get that extra bit of.
I want to, I want to see a bit more for club. I want to see, and he's played really well for Brighton.
Yeah.
But I just want to see a little bit more because you've got the Messi factor, and that's all I'm saying. You've got the Messi factor, and they all wanted to win it for him. And when you're playing with Messi, you automatically do look a little bit better. That's just how I feel when I look at certain players. You do feel like you are that player, So. It's a tough one. I'm not saying that McAllister isn't good because he is, but I just want to see a little bit more for club for me to say, do you know what? He can come and play for the Arsenal because that's what it's about, and it's playing for the Arsenal.
Yeah.
So
show that same passion, that
same desire. Exactly.
Someone tongue in cheek said, "What about Emi Martinez? You know what it is with Emi." But what's your thoughts on Emi Martinez? Obviously, ex-Arsenal player, a goalkeeper that many of us didn't want to see the back of. A decision had to be made, considering he wanted to be the star. Leno was, he was the starter prior to the injury, and it seemed like he was going to be the starter moving forward, coming back off injury. Martinez mentioned Arsenal quite a bit following his move to Aston Villa. Derogatory comments over time. I guess I can understand it considering he felt hard done by with Arsenal, but I feel like we've moved on as a club. You can see where we are. He's over at Villa. He's doing his thing for Argentina, Copa America, and a big performance in the World Cup final. Candidate for man of the match. Are you happy for him, or is it one of those ones that's just it is what it is? Ex-Arsenal player, don't really care too much.
Do you know what? I have more feeling towards Aubameyang than I have for Emi Martinez. That ship's gone. Like, he's doing his thing, and good on him. Like, he showed that he's a very good keeper. But a lot of people are having this revisionist history against Arsenal and saying, how can we sell him for, was it 7 million to Aston Villa?
I think it was
17. No, 17 million. I'm saying, we wanted to keep him. He wanted to go. So what do you want to do? Do you want us to look there, look stupid and say, well, why are we not selling this player? We could use that money, reinvest? And ultimately, I think we've got a better keeper right now. At the time, Leno was the Arsenal #1 and he was a solid keeper. And at the time, whether people want to agree, he was the better keeper. He had more reputation, a better reputation behind him, and he was performing well for Arsenal. So people are now looking at it and saying, oh, what he's become, that's what we had. No, that's not the case. So that's where I think people are kind of switching stories a little bit. But look, ultimately, good on him. He's outperformed anything that, listen, people will say, oh, when they had him at FM, they used to sell him 4 or 5 years ago. And now look where he is. Listen, big up to him, man. He's done well. He's been instrumental. People could say he's man of the match for Argentina.
I think he was, when you consider that last second save.
Exactly. So, yeah, good on him, but I just want people to slow down a little bit with what they're saying about Arteta. He's not got the talent ID and all this stuff, because he wanted him to stay. So clearly Arteta saw something in him. He could have been #1, but I'm going to pull it back on you, Emi Martinez. You didn't want to fight for your position. You didn't have the bottle. You didn't have the bottle to fight. You were playing in the number one position for Arsenal against Liverpool in the Community Shield, which we won, I think, on penalties again. And ultimately, he fluffed his line. So if you ain't got that kind of fight in you, you can't be playing for a top 4 club. That's period. Not just Arsenal. Any top 6, top 4 club, you can't be, because you need to have that kind of competition, whether it's a keeper or not, for me. So look, big up to him. Well done. But I'm moving on for him, man.
Couple super chats on the World Cup subject. Big up Max. He says, big up Lee and Turkish. Congrats to Benzema retiring from international football. And congrats to Arsenal for renewing Martinelli. Just needs Saka and Saliba. Also on the whole Messi and Ronaldo debate, Messi can't touch Ronaldo. He adds Messi technically is better than Ronaldo when it comes to dribbling, passing, shooting, etc. But when it comes to personal trophies and club trophies, no chance. If one World Cup means you're the GOAT, then Martinez is better than Alisson. It's not just the one World Cup that means the GOAT. It's the icing on the cake for Messi's career. When you look at internationally, how often his international resume was used to knock him, and it was used to knock his ability, and it's nothing on his ability. His ability in my lifetime, by far he is the greatest in terms of on the ball, what he brought. Over the last few days I've been seeing Messi comps on YouTube and whatnot, and he was next level. What the World Cup done is shut the doubters up. No one can talk to him about international no more. No one can talk to him about doing it outside of that Barcelona team, without Pep, without Xavi, without Iniesta, and so on. So it's not necessarily that one World Cup win that did it. It's the icing on the cake that he baked over the 15, 20 years he's been around.
20 years, and you're so right. And it's been 22 years. I think he's made his debut at 16 years old, 17 years old. He's now, sorry, it's not 18. It's not 22. It's 20 years. Sorry, apologies.
More or less.
More or less. And I'm looking at it and I'm saying, look, you're right. It's not about these 7 games that he's played, because if that was the case, you're right. All of these, Mustafi would be one of the best centre backs in the world, and that's not the case. What you have to think about is you extrapolate his whole career, what he's done. He's clocked football. As I said, if he wanted to now retire tomorrow, he's good. He's goated with that, and it was always between the two players, Ronaldo and Messi, who was a better player. And I think you kind of speaking about it, so I don't even want to regurgitate too much of what you've been saying. But on the ball, I just believe that Messi can do a lot more with the ball than what Ronaldo can do. And Ronaldo's worked very hard to get to the position he is. But I do now look at it and I'm saying to myself, it was just about Ronaldo kept mentioning the stats, the trophies. Messi's got everything now. And when we go back to the World Cup, you can't replace where you're born. You can't just keep stopping and changing. So he had to deal with the cards he had to deal with. So he's only been able to win the Copa America once. Okay, but he's done it. Obviously, Ronaldo's won the European trophy because he's in Europe. He's in Portugal. So when it gets to the World Cup, we look at knockout goals. We look at the kind of impact that they've made for their countries. And look, now there's nothing to beat Messi with. Like he's done it all. He's completed it all, and he was instrumental in the World Cup for Argentina. I look at that Argentina team, and people kept saying, yeah, they had a great team. I don't think they had a great team.
No, do I? People actually say their team's better than Portugal.
That's nonsense. It's not. Brazil had the best. For me, Brazil had the best team. Then I think France. I didn't even really think France were as good as what they were on. For me, I thought they were good, but I really thought Brazil were the best team. So I look at it like that, and I'm saying he shouldn't really have kind of made the impact that he did with the team that he has, but he fully carried and had Lautaro Martinez playing against him that time, and was still doing all the madness. So he could have had, I think he's got 20 goals and assists in the 5 World Cups that he's played, more than Pele, more than everyone. So he's done it all. Like there's nothing for him to kind of talk about and mention anymore. So big up to him, man.
Can't forget the Olympics as well. He actually done a clean sweep of international. Max did mention Martinelli, new contract. And Andrew kind of on that subject says, if I'm an agent, I'm telling a client like Saka or Saliba to wait until after the winter window to force the club to show their ambition. Fingers crossed, KSC is feeling that pressure. Now, on the Martinelli rumours, there are strong rumours that literally have come out about half an hour to an hour ago that Martinelli signed a new contract up until 2027. I believe it comes from Diario Sport, a Spanish newspaper based in Barcelona. I'm not sure why they would be the ones to break it, or they would be the ones to know all about it. I know there was links to Barcelona for Martinelli, but these contracts are integral, Lee. I mean, how important are these contracts? We always talk about January, the window, bringing players in, but how much of a priority is re-signing these players to long-term contracts, not just Martinelli, but Saka and Saliba too?
I'm going to say a month ago, I did a watch along with James, and James, we did a little game like out of comparison of players, etc. We did the game. Question was, who is the most vital person to sign out of Saka, Martinelli, and Saliba? And I said at the time it was Saliba, because I just feel like he's got options, and his options, out of the three of them, he'd be the one that I think would leave the quickest out of all three of those players. I think his attachment to Arsenal is there, and it's 100% strong, but maybe not as strong as the other two. So I just look at it now, it's really good, and I'm happy about Martinelli. If it's true, I'm happy, let's move on, because we've got two other really, really important players that are as instrumental. Probably you could say Saliba's more instrumental than the other two, dare I say it.
I lean more towards that as well. But then when you look at Saka in this tournament, any challenge that faces Saka, he just knocks it out the park.
You know why I say Saliba though is the most important one? Only because
hard to find young.
It's hard to find world-class defenders, and I'm not saying he's there yet, but I don't want to discredit Saka, but Saka, you can find another Saka. You can find another Saka with the quality like that.
He's the face of the process.
He's the face of the process, yeah. But I'm just trying to say that there are players like that where you can get enticed and kind of bring into the club, and they can do a really good job. Let's just say, out of random, Mudryk, for example, he could come in and get some really good goals and have the tenacity and have all of the things that you would kind of look for in a really good up and coming winger. I'm not saying he has, but when I look at Saliba, I do look at him, and he's got that Van Dijk thing about him where it's just everything he does is with class, and he just oozes just confidence, composure, just quality, just outright quality. And I kept comparing him to I think his name's Vardy from Croatia. The reason why I'm saying Saliba's even better than him, I don't like the way that Vardy was all rash. He's always diving in. He's always making a last-ditch tackle. Saliba's not really put in those positions because he's always snuffing things out first. And I'm not saying that Vardy is not a good defender, but what I am saying is that I just think Saliba's got that extra X factor about him, and I think you don't find players like him. You really don't. You can find another Saka, you can find another Martinelli that works hard and he's excellent on the ball and he's penetrative runs and all of the things that, because it's a system thing with those wingers. But with someone like Saliba, he has to be so good because you need to leave 2 against 1, and he does that, and he's so instrumental. So listen, they're all important, but Saliba for me is the one that I feel like we need to get done ASAP.
Yeah. I get your feeling. With Saka, he's the face of the process, and I put him up there with Saliba. But then I think
Saka's going to be done, man.
I just think they're all up there.
Saka's going to be done, man. If Saka's not done, boy, I was going to say I've got a forfeit, but I'm not trying to just kill myself like that. But listen, I'm confident Saka's done. I believe Saka's done. I'm very certain Saka's done. Saliba, let's see.
And on Gvardiol, since you mentioned him, he seems to be that type of defender that you pair with a Saliba, and then you have that perfect partnership that complement each other.
Gabriel, he is literally a younger, more mobile, even give it credit, better version of Gabriel. He is. He's very, very good. But I just think, bro, when you think about generational, like the top echelon of young players is Konate and Saliba, and then everyone else comes after that. That's for me. So
just some breaking news here. Fabrizio Romano has tweeted 3 minutes ago, and the tweet says Shakhtar Donetsk Vice Director Nicolini on Mudryk. Quote, Mudryk has received the message, like other players, to show up for Antalya training camp on January the 9th. There is interest from Arsenal for him, but we've received no official bids. Surprised about that, considering the amount of strong links that have been, in place over the last few weeks, considering how much he's kind of opened his arms to Arsenal in interviews and in social media channels.
Listen, I've been saying it, boy. That guy been off in panties for Arsenal, boy, like bad. And when I look at it, I'm saying, do you know what? The only annoying thing about this, and it's funny, we was talking to Joe downstairs. The only annoying thing is that if it's true that there's no bid that's come through, that's the most annoying thing, because I wanted him in January the 1st.
Same.
That's the only annoying thing. All the other talk is Romano's going to say whatever he's going to say. Like, sometimes he gets things right, sometimes he gets things wrong. The most annoying thing is that I wanted that bid to be lock and loaded,
Signed,
ready
sealed,
for.
delivered.
So he's ready for. I think is it Newcastle?
Third,
Yeah,
I think,
like, that's the most annoying thing for me. So look, I don't want to talk too much on all the other stuff because you know, like Arsenal are going to do what they do. We know they drag their feet and they're going to try to find the best deal for them. They don't want to be bumped and they don't want to look like we're overpaying for players because we don't move like that no more. So you can see it from the club's point of view, but sometimes you just got to cough up. If you want the player that bad and you're unsettling this club and you're unsettling this player, sometimes you just got to take the hit. You got to take the hit and move on with it. And we need the player not only because we want the player, but because of the issue with Jesus at this moment in time. Yeah. So listen, man, whoever, Edu, get off the Barbie. There's no hot weather for you, mate. There's no hot weather. So come on, man. Just put the money on the table and just get him done, man. Come on, get him done, man.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. If we are interested, then I would have liked to seen it, signed, still delivered as soon as possible, considering he wasn't at the World Cup, considering Shakhtar not actually back in action till February in the Europa League and March in their own domestic league. So there's a lot of time in between without football. So I would have thought that if there was interest, solid interest, maybe Arsenal would have made and secured the deal. But maybe this is hardball from Shakhtar saying, listen, if Arsenal aren't prepared to, budge on our valuation of him, then
do you know what I was going to ask you? How much would you want to pay for him? Because firstly, like, there's talk, is he good enough? Is he worth the money? Like all of these things. But there was 100 million touted for him 2 weeks ago. Clearly, we're not going to pay that.
No.
I think we're looking at a ballpark of 60 to 70 million pounds. Firstly, if you're paying that money, he's coming into the first team. Like, you think about that kind of money for players, bro, they come straight into the first team. Around the world even. Like, I mean, I know Endrick came for 60 million pounds, but most clubs, if you're spending that kind of money, Rafinha to Barcelona, Aubameyang, all of these players, they come into the first team and they're there. So do you think he's even worth that money, or do you think that was my thing? At
first, you hear quotes 60 to 80 mil, and then it kind of went to 100 mil, and then it sounded like it was 40 mil. So in terms of what I would spend on him, listen, I've tried to do this whole thing in the past where I'll say this player, I will spend this much on him. I think that's sensible, but at the same time, I look at Arteta's track record, and we're going to move on to Arteta because this show is essentially about Arteta and 3 years in charge today. But he's made some very good decisions that fans like myself were not necessarily behind. I look at 50 million on Ben White. Now, am I saying Ben White's worth 50 million? I'm not saying that, but what I am saying is what Ben White's brought to the side, I'm more than happy with it. Ramsdale was at 27 mil. At the time, I was like, what the hell is this club doing? We mentioned Martinez, and I was thinking, listen, we just had a top keeper. We let him go for 17. Now we're buying a keeper that's been relegated a few times for 27. But look at what he's brought to the side. So I trust Arteta and Edu a lot more than I did maybe 18 months ago. So if Mudryk is not the guy to come in January, then I trust them and I trust what they're going to do. Otherwise, if he is the guy, then again, I trust them and I expect to see Mudryk implemented and deployed pretty much immediately because we've got something to challenge for this season.
100%.
We might as well move to Arteta now. We've already mentioned in that 3 years in charge to Daly, a lot of ups and downs over that time. I want to take you back to, December the 20th, 2019. It wasn't really a secret by this point when it became official that Arteta becomes Arsenal's head coach. He was head coach initially. He was made manager the summer of 2020. What was your general feeling around the time? Emery, second season, messy times in the league, very poor form. Arteta comes in. What was your initial reaction?
Do you know what? It was like a poignant point in my life because I was just getting ready to move to Dubai. I had my whole life, my new life, getting ready to be sorted out, and I just remember that interview. The same day that I kind of knew that I was going to move to Dubai is the same day that Arteta today, 3 years ago, was going to actually be the head coach at Arsenal. And I just remember his first interview and just thinking, this guy's the truth.
I have a quote from that. I feel back at home. I want to bring a new process, a new way of thinking.
It was everything about it. It was the way he sat there so smug, the way he sat there knowing that he was going to be, I think he knew he was going to be backed, and it was a long job. I remember that, they do the Arsenal behind the scenes, inside training, all that stuff. And he went into the training ground and he was like asking, do the coaches have drones? And he was trying to change guys. If you ain't seen it, go back and watch it, man. It was nice. It was really good. first season, obviously, we got to the FA Cup final, and just before obviously I moved to Dubai, I went to go to watch the FA Cup final, and I was just confident because I knew that we had beaten Man City, and it was the time where it was Ole Gunnar Solskjaer versus Arteta versus Lampard. And I just knew he was a better manager. I knew he was a better coach, whatever. I just knew that we was going to win that game.
From his confidence and the way he spoke, I'm assuming.
And to be honest, the way that he came in and changed it to the three at the back, and he was using what he had. I know we went out to Olympiacos that season in the Europa League, but we looked a lot better from the dross that we had. I think it was our first game. We played Chelsea as well. We absolutely battered them. We lost in the last minute from a Tammy Abraham goal. The second game we beat, I think on New Year's Day, we played Man United at home. We battered them. So there were so many good signs that I was seeing. And then it was just mad because this following season, it was a mess.
Yeah.
And it was the run of games from November to December-ish times where I was like, and listen, we know someone, Kaz, I don't want to sound fake because I don't want to seem like I was always on Arteta's boat, but he knows I was Arteta out, bro. I was like, I can't do this no more. We lost to Wolves, we lost to Burnley at home.
Into the second season.
Into his
first full season.
Season. We lost to all of these teams in December, and it was bad. It was bad. And it was, do you know what my thing was here with him is he wasn't learning from his mistakes. He wasn't learning from the substitutes. He was trusting Luiz, giving him a new contract. All of these things encompassing bad decisions. And it was just like, do you know what? Maybe the job's too big for him. Maybe all what he said, it sounds nice, it sounds pretty, but we are just so much of a mess. Even he can't save us, like he can't do the job. And listen, we come full circle to this point now today where we are. And, I think his talent ID, the way that Lee Judges always says, the guy's got 9 lives, bro. The way that he could have been sacked on so many different occasions, and he's been backed and he's come through, and all of his decisions are coming full circle, come to fruition. And listen, man, I can't be happier. I can't be proud of the guy. And he shut me up. He shut you up. He shut most people up. And listen, the way that he's kind of got everybody in love with Arsenal again, the season tickets are up, everything's up, man. So listen, man, big up to the guy. And I kind of stopped this whole Arteta out thing from a while back because I just knew that he was never going to get sacked. So I had to back him. I had no choice. I'm not going to keep being on this I wasn't going to keep being on an Arteta out brigade. And even now I keep saying, bro, I think he's the second, third best manager. I think he's better than Conte. I think he's better than, he's so good. And there's nothing wrong with changing your mind. He's done that, and credit to him that he's changed my mind. He's changed our opinions on this guy, man. So
yeah,
big up to him.
If I take myself back to the day that it was announced that we signed him, listen, I'd be lying if I said I didn't have my doubts. The reason being because of the inexperience. He didn't have the managerial experience. Yes, he was assistant at Man City, and yes, good things were said about him by the legend Wenger. But I just thought the shape Arsenal are in at this moment in time, December 2019, we needed someone with a bit of experience, with a bit of authority, with a bit of know-how to come in and kind of shake things up a bit and kind of make the difficult decisions. But I remember saying at the same time, listen, I also don't want to be a club that chops and changes managers. I don't want to be that sort of club. I want, if a manager comes in, then let's, go all in for him. And I don't mean this as a fan base. I mean this as an ownership and as a boardroom, because my main focus over the years, ever since I've been on YouTube giving my opinions on Arsenal, has been the ownership. And one thing about them is over the years, they have supported him. They have backed him. I know I can pick out last January and say, listen, I don't think they backed him then. They did kind of leave him in a bit of a sticky situation then, and maybe we can look at that January and say that's why we didn't make top 4, considering the moves Tottenham made, the impact the players that came in had on their remaining 4 or 5 months of the season, and then pipping us to top 4. But I remember, Arteta coming in, speaking so well, confidently. He said exactly what I wanted to hear. There's a disconnect between the fans and the club. He said, there's an aura of a mentality, a poor mentality in the dressing room, and that needs to be raised. He talked about a new way of thinking. I think that can go across the board, a new way of thinking in ownership, a new way of thinking in terms of the players, a new way of thinking for us fans. We were in the mud for so long, and this dates back well before Mikel Arteta as well. I mean, I know a lot of people now are clamouring for top four and wanting Champions League football back, and I definitely do. But I never forget that that's where I initially got frustrated with Arsenal and the way we were being run in top four. My first appearance in AFTV was after the flight from Munich, the first 5-1 in our last Champions League game, February 2017. So I just thought, inexperience, he speaks well for sure, he's saying the right things. Listen, back the man and let's see. I know in January we brought in Cedric, we brought in Pablo Mari. I'm not sure if we brought in a third player, but I remember those two. And then the first summer he had, off the back of that FA Cup win, you mentioned it, the Man City game. A lot of credit goes to Oba for that. But at the same time, Arteta was the manager. And the FA Cup final, we got it under our belts, a trophy in his first 7-8 months. Moved on to the summer, secured Pablo Mari on a long-term deal. Gabriel came in that summer.
Willian?
Yeah.
Willian?
Now that's where the curveball came in, because on one hand Thomas Partey and Gabriel, solid signings. On the other we had a Willian. But then listen, something I've always knocked the Arsenal hierarchy for is not learning from mistakes or not moving fast. Now Willian, one season it didn't go well. Next summer he was out of the door. And I like that kind of ruthlessness about Mikel Arteta. I like that. Listen, he noticed it didn't work. I expect that he assumed Willian's experience would come and help the younger heads. It didn't. It actually didn't work at all. But we didn't dwell on it. We moved him on straight away, and he was on quite big money for someone of his age and the quality that I'll say he was bringing, but the quality he wasn't bringing is probably more better assessment of it. Thomas Partey, a solid member of the first 11 now. Gabriel, solid member of the first 11. And then ever since the 2021 transfer window, mentioned Ben White, mentioned Ramsdale, players that have again pushed us, to where we are now, top of the league, higher expectations. We've got a Zinchenko coming out to say, we shouldn't be talking about top four, we should be talking about winning the league. Martinelli said something along those lines too. Arteta and Edu have pretty much said things along those lines. When Arteta was made manager from head coach, again, I looked at it and thought, well, it was quite a quick shift. After Wenger and the whole, what is a director of football? Is it someone that directs traffic and all of that nonsense that Wenger kind of said towards the end of his reign at Arsenal? I thought we was going to try and go with the head coach role, with the director of football taking the most responsibility over the playing staff. But that quickly shifted to Mikel Arteta being named manager. And again, I thought to myself, well, he won an FA Cup, but what's he really done, to warrant that manager title being given to him so quickly after we moved from the first model of manager with Wenger to a head coach with Emery and then back to manager with Arteta? I talk about he spoke well. I guess he showed them the vision as well, and they really got behind him. Now, a lot of people ask me about Kroenkes now and whatnot, and whether I've changed my opinion on them, and I always say no. I can give them credit for backing Mikel through some of our darkest times and finishing 8th. I remember November 2020?
2020, yeah.
That terrible form. You mentioned, you wanted Arteta out. Listen, I never actually said, Arteta out, because I'm tired of this whole out thing, because it's just become something.
It's gimmicky now.
It's a gimmick now. Yeah. But that's not me saying that I didn't think that he wasn't good enough for the job. I said many times that I think we won't be able to achieve what I want to achieve as an Arsenal fan for this club with a Mikel Arteta. I had big doubts for sure. I mean, I'd sway one side, I'd sway the other side, and more often than not during that period, I was thinking, nah, this guy's he isn't the guy. He speaks well, yes, but at the same time, like you said, he hasn't really learned from his mistakes. But in hindsight, it was a massive job on his hands, and it couldn't just be done like that with a click of the fingers. It was always going to take time. And I think last season gave me an indicator into, listen, we didn't get what we hoped for in the end. To be honest with you, I didn't expect top 4 at the start of the season. I actually said, if we challenge for top 4, miss out in the last few days, that is progress for me. But as an Arsenal fan, when you're sitting in top 4 come January the 1st, your expectations kind of rise, and cool, that's on me, hands up. I wanted top 4, it didn't happen. Was I vexed about it? Yes, I love Arsenal Football Club. But then when you take a moment to breathe, a few days, a few weeks goes by, and I remember to myself what I initially expected that season. I thought to myself, well, he delivered exactly what I thought to expect, having you know, having spent what we spent, I thought it'd be very difficult to break top 4 that season, and we didn't. We just missed out. But what I saw in that season is a team that didn't just roll over anymore. A team that could pick themselves back up off of poor defeats or a couple of defeats in a row. We kind of turned it around pretty quickly. We was winning the games we should be winning, not in emphatic style, but he didn't have his squad yet. We was getting points on the board. Yes, Tottenham did what they did in January and they pipped us to it at the end. But I saw enough to say, you know what? I like what I'm seeing. Let's see what we can do this season. And coming into this season, I said, top 4, it's a must. Champions League football is a must. Whether it's top 4, whether it's top 4 or winning the Europa League, you know, essentially I want both together. Just get Champions League football back to Arsenal. Reason being, the Champions League money, I want to see what the Kroenkes do with it this time. What did they do with it last time?
Nothing.
In my opinion, nothing. They didn't show the ambition, and they kind of left Wenger to it, and it just never worked. They didn't have any desire to kick on from them back to back Champions League finishes. So I just thought we need that back to really see if this ownership has changed their ways. If Josh stepping into the forefront is different to Stan being the silent one. I won't necessarily say at the forefront. And so far, top of the league, and I feel like Champions League football is returning. I think I can say that with as much chest as I could since before I've come on YouTube. I think we will be back in Champions League next year. But I mentioned Zinchenko, I mentioned Martinelli, and I mentioned standards having to raise. Is that good enough? Is me just expecting Champions League football good enough, considering we're top of the table right now? Jesus' injury is massive to that, and we can touch in on that and how that affects that hope and desire. But is this season still all about Champions League football returning to the Emirates, or has our early season form kind of put more pressure on achieving something bigger this season?
Firstly, boy, hey, listen, people, that was the most beautiful eulogy I've ever heard about a man that ain't related to anyone that Turkish knows, bro. That was absolutely sensational. And you know what? I'm sure that's how most fans feel, man. Like,
but do you remember when Tobes asked me on Big Six in January,
he tried
would you swap Conte for Arteta? And I said no. A lot of people will remember that because they not
because it was shocking. It was shocking because you were so like you wanted Conte. And you were adamant. Like, why did Arsenal not go for Conte? And look, you know, it's come full circle for you, and you've been man enough to say it. And the way you said it is, you know, you stuck to your guns, bro. Like you've said it in the right way. And ultimately, look, we've got a top level coach manager on our hands. I truly believe that. Like, and I think you're right. I think the thing that we always forget is we were in a mess. And I think everybody needs to go and look at the game, the first team that he put out, and the team that we put out after the I think it was a restart when we had Man City. It was woeful. Like we had a squad with like still Mustafi that we were relying on, and we were relying on Bellerin and Kalashnikov still, and Pepe. Like, look how he's turned out now. So look, Lacazette, and we know what he was when over the last 2-3 years now. So look, for me, I think there was a lot that Arteta did which maybe didn't help himself. I have to say that he did some things which I didn't really agree with. Maybe the way that he handled certain people, the amount of chances he kept giving to Xhaka when he kept making the same mistakes. But, you know, we look at this guy and he's played, it's what, I think 150 games, 90 wins, 40 losses and 21 draws. Bro, I'm not going to say that that's bad. I'm not. With all of that, what's encompassing all of what we've come from and where we're at right now, listen, man, the guy's doing some really good things. And, you know, it just shows patience is key, man. Like, patience is key. And ultimately, we're in a good position and we have to keep moving. And going back to what you just asked me, I think this is going to show how good of a manager he is. Him being able to work out how we're gonna navigate this, and people are gonna keep getting onto Eddie and saying that Jesus is this and Jesus is that. Yes, but we can't put the same expectations on Eddie that we put on Jesus, because ultimately they're not the same player. You know, and you wouldn't ask us Yaya Toure to do the same thing that, I don't know, Fabinho does, because they just do different things, you know. So look, for me, I think that you just need to start playing a different way, and because Jesus is someone who can come out of the box, drop deeper, create hassle, etc., and they are similar sort of strikers and they are pressing forwards. But we know that Eddie's a box player. He's going to be in and around trying to get on the edge of things. He's a true number 9. Whereas I look at Jesus as he's that Firmino type of player, that number 10/number 9. He can do a bit of everything, and that's why we kind of get on him a bit, because he's only scored 5 goals but forgot 5 assists. So look, like the title, I was all for it before, and I have to say that I have lost a bit of hope, because with Jesus, we were 90 point team. If we carried on this and extrapolate that over the season, we were getting 90 plus points, because we've only lost 1 game and we dropped points against Southampton as well. Listen, that's unheard of. You don't really hear these things unless you're invincible. So look, for me, I'm looking at it and I'm saying to myself, with Eddie, I think we'll be a 70 plus team. That's enough to get top 4 for me. I do think though, if we do kind of fall away in the league and get 2nd/3, 100% we need to get that. We have to get Europa League, because I still feel like the Europa League it's a monkey on his back since he's been here. It's a monkey on the club's back over the last 5 years, and I just think that we need to get some European glory, and we can't keep saying that. We can't keep making excuses and moving the needle, because we all wanted Europa League at the start of the season, and it's relatively easy to win. Some of the teams are going to be knocking out some of the other top teams in the leagues, in the Europa League. So I think there's an opportunity. And the last point I'm going to make is we are a very, very, very good team, and that's what we need to start to get our head around. That, because we always win these games and we're like, we can't believe we won the way we won. We're so convinced that it's such a convincing win. We're not used to that. So we need to now understand we're such a good team that we should be expecting to go and win these games. We should be expecting to have good performances. We should be expecting Odegaard and all these other players to step up, which they have been doing, because they are such good players. And for Arsenal, the way that Arteta's got them playing, the formation, the system, can't go wrong at this moment.
Got a super chat in from Haynes saying, don't forget Mikel Arteta inherited the Kia Duracell and Raul Sanllehi issue too.
There you go.
And not only that, let's look at some of the players over the years that he's had to deal with. I mean, Mesut Ozil, Matteo Guendouzi, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, William Saliba. At the time, I guess, emotions running high. We all had different opinions on how these situations, these individual players should have been handled. Me, myself, I looked at Guendouzi, and I actually like Guendouzi a lot. I thought good quality young player. Right attitude in one sense, but then wrong attitude. But that same attitude in a different sense is what cost him his career at Arsenal Football Club. William Saliba, I thought Mikel Arteta was right to loan him out in that first season because of what William had to go through off the pitch, family issues, and also his injury problems throughout that loan season initially when we signed him. I thought it's the right thing to do, take him out of the firing line. I mean, Fofana can sign for Leicester, make mistakes, and it's not going to be headline news. I mean, at Arsenal Football Club, you make mistakes, then it could ruin a young player's career. So I understood that. But then the second season, I thought, wow, we're buying Ben White for 50 million and then sending William out on loan again. Is there an issue between them? Obviously, William and Guendouzi they seemed like they was good friends. On social media, there was a few comments made. Aubameyang, I understand that actually, I actually backed him in a sense where let's move on from Aubameyang now. I was just frustrated we didn't sign anyone in January. Mesut Ozil, I think everyone knew how I felt about Ozil even prior to Mikel coming in. Enough was enough in that sense. High wages, low productivity. It just didn't work at all. But when you look at those names in particular and his approach, and I guess you can say his ruthlessness in those decisions, how do you look upon them now?
I mean, the most important one, well, not even the most important one, the most recent one, I should say, Tavares. He brought him in, he realised he ain't good enough, and he shipped him out to France.
Yeah.
And if he's not good enough, he will easily and quickly sell him. And there's been times, maybe rightly or wrongly, where he's played a half, 25 minutes against Nottingham Forest in the FA Cup. He took him off. Maybe you might think, oh, he's an easy person because he's a new and young player, but he's still done it, And, I think for me, look, I think he's making the right decisions and he makes them at the right time. And sometimes we don't think it's the right decision at the right time or at that time, but ultimately, every single one of his decisions have come to be the right decision for Arsenal. And that's the most important thing. It's not an ego thing for him. I don't think he thinks and thinks, I want to be seen as the GOAT and all this amazing manager. He's making the right decisions for this team and for the club. So, yeah, man, I just think that the guy is he's just unbelievable. Like some of the things that he's done and the way he's managing this club moving forward I feel very safe. And you got Liverpool fans that will laugh at him and say that he's not good enough. You got Chelsea fans they will say the same thing. Man United fans will say the same thing because they've got Erik ten Hag now. But I really do think that we've got a top level manager on our hands, and you know, I'm very, very happy to say that I can feel confident moving forward with this guy, because everything he touches at this moment in time is turning to gold. And as I said before, I think he's going to try and find a way. We're not going to win every game. We're not 100%. We're not going to win every game. But I think he's going to be able to navigate through the Brightons and the Newcastles at home, and even the Man Uniteds at home and stuff like that. Tottenham's away. So, you know, I think there's a lot to come in the next like month or so. And I think there was news yesterday that came out that Jesus may be back for February the 25th. I think that's very optimistic, but at the same time, I think that we can get through that this period. I do think we can get through this period. I say unscathed, but just not as bad as people think.
So I was about to ask you, is the future bright? But I think you summed it up pretty well there.
I think the future is bright. I think, as I said, his track record of bringing through young players, the way that you got all the accounts of Fernandinho, Sterling talking about how he's changed their game, Mahrez, even Pep, how he talks about and lauds about this guy, saying that he's such a tactically adept manager, and he knows what he's doing. He knows how to manage things. You got the Cronkies, he's got them eating at the palm of his hands. He's got all this money. No one's ever been back to Arsenal like he has. Nobody has really, other than Wenger. And that's, you think about how long it took him to make these changes and how much he won before he got everything he wanted and deserved. Arteta's relatively done nothing, and he's got all this money. He's been able to make all these changes, and he's been able to make a real difference in the backroom staff and in the culture of Arsenal with the designs of all this stuff at the training ground. I think even as they go in, he's got these inspiring quotes as they come into the Emirates. You know, so for me, I just think not only is it on the pitch, but it's off the pitch. And I think, I don't know if he was going to talk about this, but we need to think about this. If Martinelli has signed, it's only because of one manager. He's re-signed. That would be the second time. I don't know if you remember. He re-signed, what was it, 2 years ago?
Yeah.
And now this is another time. If Saka stays, because of the manager. Partey's come because of the manager. He's brought in all of these players because of the manager. And the most important two players that you spoke about before, Jesus and Zinchenko, because of the manager. So listen, man, I think he can only get better. He can only keep bringing players in. And I think in lockdown, I don't know if you remember, he said he's not going to beg anyone to play for Arsenal.
Yeah.
He knows that if you want to play for Arsenal, this is the Arsenal, the mighty Arsenal, and you have to be in love with the team. You have to be in love with the club, and you have to have that link with Arsenal and the manager and the team. So he knows that he's getting this newfound confidence in himself, and he can bring it forward, and he can bring us into the new promised land, I think.
Fingers crossed. Champions League football at the Emirates. We need that first and foremost. But if a league title comes with it this season, listen, we'll grab it. We'll grab it.
And listen, if anybody thinks the Argentina celebrations, hey, listen, N5, it will be popping off. Listen, these people don't understand. You lot, because I know we've got a lot of international fans. They don't know Chelsea. The Chelsea fans are Arsenal fans. They don't really know that. Man City fans, you're Arsenal fans. I'm going to tell you, even if you don't know that, you are. Spurs fans, Toby, you're an Arsenal fan, you waste man. I know what you are. Don't you worry. I got a lot on you, you punk. But anyway, listen, we're going to move on. We're not going to digress. But anyway.
Man City's got a lot on Tobes. I might need that for Scarfuggery.
Listen, Tobes. Hey, listen, man. We're going to move, man.
It's also been announced, we'll move on from Arteta now. It's also been announced, well, not necessarily announced, but tomorrow we're playing Luton in a behind closed doors friendly. I think it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, that Juventus game on Saturday and then the West Ham game this coming Monday, there's a considerable gap in between it. So I think it's good for the players to get a run out. Have you taken much from the friendlies? Lyon, AC Milan wins, the Juventus loss. Have you taken anything from them, or is it just about the fitness levels and getting them back into that competitive mindset?
Nah, man. I think again, it just shows how much intensity, the quality and depth we've got. I know that we lost against Juventus. I did see the first half. I thought we absolutely battered them. The game was actually quite boring, but I thought like the possession, the sort of half chances that we had, I think we did more than enough. It was just one of those days. Sometimes you get that, but it shows how well coached we are. It shows that we are ready to come back, and we're still missing Saliba, we're still missing Zinchenko, we're still missing Tomiyasu, we're still missing Martinelli, we're still missing Saka, and obviously Jesus. So you can see the players that are coming in. Obviously, Reece Nelson, apologies as well, he's missing as well. So you can see the quality that's coming in, and they're still making a difference. They're still being impactful. So everyone kept saying in the summer, it's only friendlies, and then look what we did in the Premier League. So for me, I'm glad to see we're playing in the same way. You look at Chelsea, I think they played on the weekend, and I think they actually lost to Aston Villa 1-0. Listen, it's not looking good for them, man. It's not looking good. So I'm just liking the way that we were playing at Wolves. I did the watch along with you, and it seems to be that we're still playing the same way. So hopefully West Ham are going to hold something nice and stiff, man.
Long may it continue. I can't let that West Ham and that Brighton game before the January window opens, and not only the January window, but Newcastle, Tottenham, Man United fixtures 3rd, 4th, 5th, I believe, off the top of my head. It's very important to get 6 out of 6 heading into the new year. So January, okay, we'll round it up on January, Lee. Perfect January for you? Is it a couple names? If it is a couple names, who would those names be for you?
I mean, unrealistically, I would say obviously João Felix. I think he would be a very, very good squad / replacement / competitor for someone like Jesus, because I think you alluded to it earlier on. We needed someone in the summer to kind of back up Jesus or be a competitor for him anyway, and he can play anywhere in that forward line. He can be our Richarlison kind of player, where he can come in, he can play on the left, he can play in the centre, he can play on the right as well. And I do still think that we need a midfielder. I'm not high on Danilo. I've seen a lot of comps, and he doesn't look good in comps. I've seen a tiny bit of a game he played in Brazil, and he didn't look great for me. He's got the legs, he's got the engine, but on the ball, I think Arteta likes technicians, and I don't think he's got that. He's got that about him. He's still young, so listen, I'm not going to dump on him, but I do think that we need a centre mid just to kind of carry us through.
So your midfield option, you'd go for more a 6 than an 8. Yeah,
because I just feel like if we do lose Partey, I like El Neni. He's serviceable for 2 or 3 games. Anything more than that, we're in trouble. It's big trouble. And then it just means that Lokonga's got to play in a position that we know he doesn't want to play. He doesn't want to be a deep line playmaker. He doesn't want to do that. He wants to be the box to box, and we've seen better performances, not to say the good, but better performances in the left-sided 8 position. So and Jack is obviously not going to move at that position. So I just don't trust Lokonga in that position. So I think that's just really important and instrumental. So I would actually probably go for someone like him, or in that position, rather than a striker, because I know Jesus is going to come back relatively soon. But in an ideal world, I would go for João Felix. The Mudryk thing, I mean, that looks to be happening. All the news is there to be happening. So there's obviously no smoke without fire. And I would get a DM. Whoever Arteta gets, he'll trust. Let's go with it, because as you said, the guy gets everything correct. So
a few names mentioned in the chat. Mbolo mentioned Swiss forward. Amrabat mentioned Benacer.
Benacer I like. Kudus I like. Yeah, for sure. I'd like.
What about these 3 names? Because these 3 names have been linked to Arsenal in the past. Two more so than the other, but all 3 contracts coming to an end in the summer. Tielemans, Zaha, and Trossard. Now you consider Trossard in particular probably the one that hasn't been linked like Tielemans and Zaha has been linked, but with Jesus' injury and Trossard's ability to play that role, not necessarily similar to Jesus, but offers similar traits in a sense. Would any of them interest you in January?
You see the thing with the Tielemans thing, my only worry is if Arteta didn't pull the trigger in summer, there's something that he's seen that he doesn't want in him. That's my only thing where I look at him and I'm saying, is he really who he wants? Is he the 2nd or 3rd option? Arteta doesn't really do the 2nd and 3rd option. He rather wait.
Yeah.
Clearly, you've seen that. So my thing is, I'm saying I like Tielemans. I think he can fit into Arsenal like a glove. But if there's reservation from the manager, then it just puts me on the back burner with him. So that's my issue with him. It's funny because I think we have had loose links again to Savic, and the more and more I see of him, the more and more I look at him, I'm like, yeah, bring him. Because he's powerful. He reminds me of an older version of Bellingham. He's a box-to-box, gets goals, gets driving late to the box, and he's just a unit. And that's what Bellingham will eventually be on a much better and greater scale. So I think that's someone who I would kind of, again, dream signing. I think someone like him, and he's again a bit like a Xhaka, but probably more mobile. I think so. Yeah, that's someone who I would probably be looking at. But Zaha, 100%, I would take him in a heartbeat. I think the London swagger that he's got, the street ball that he's got, he's a devilish player, and he's ready. He's what, 30, 31. He knows he's going to have that one contract that's going to take him into his twilight years, and I think he kind of got the short end of the stick at Man United when he was 18, 19, and he went there quite young, and he had all the big names around him. Alex Ferguson kind of dumped him with Moyes after he left. So for me, I think this would be a perfect move for him to come to Arsenal when we are still developing, and he knows that he can bring something to the team as well, because that's what you have to do. You don't want to come and just be a bit about play. You want to come and put a stamp into the team and do what you do normally. And it will be nice. And the other part of it is, I got a lot of family that support Crystal Palace, so it would be great to dump on them. Oh my God, it would be so beautiful. Listen, Haley, he's coming to the carpet. Listen, Adam, he's coming to the carpet, man. I'm telling you, mate. Bring him, come, man.
Come on. And listen, people, as we draw this stream to a close, there's 2.4k here. Hit the like button first and foremost. We haven't even touched 500 likes. Usually I like to get to 1,000. You know what it is already. Hit the like button if you haven't. Lee, tell them where they can find you, because I know you got your own channel. Yeah.
Make sure, as I said, there's 2k in here. I'm on the way to 1,000. If you liked any of my opinions, I will have another video out in the next couple of days. It is Guna Lee. It is in the title of this name. So if you do want to follow me up, I need about 300 subscribers more to kind of reach that 1,000 mark. And yeah, listen, man, the journey of AFTV, the journey of Arsenal, it's gonna be a good one, man. And hopefully you can join us all, and obviously everyone in AFTV to the point where we win the league, man, because that's listen, as I keep saying, if you lot want to see the celebrations in Edgeway World, what they've been doing for Morocco and they've been doing in Argentina, if we win the league,
it's gonna be
I'll
mad.
cry on stream. I don't even mind,
it was mad when we won FA Cup, let alone if we win the league again.
I see Matisse, bro. I love you, bro, but you twerking was mad. But I will do it. I will twerk on screen. I don't care. If we win the league, I don't care, bro. Listen, I will do unforgivable things if we win the league, because, bro.
Haley, Adam, there you go. If we sign Zaha, then you can get him back.
Listen, I need that league, bro. 19 years, bro. It's been a long time, man. And we were dumping on Liverpool when we were younger because they were on Channel 5 first. So.
Asking people like, why do you support Liverpool? I remember those times.
Listen, man, the London hype is real, man. The Arsenal hype is real. So listen, we need to see those celebrations, man. And listen, I just want to get a post of Toby's head, and I want to be carrying it while I'm listening. All right, yo, come on.
And bring his twin Tosin with us as well, because he'll be enjoying as well.
Please, come on, man.
Listen, you heard it there. In the title, Lee's channel is there, so all you got to do is click that, subscribe. He's about 300 or so off 1,000. If we can make it happen, let's make it happen, people. Coming up to the end of the year. Just a heads up, Robbie is back. I'll be live with him tomorrow at 5 p.m. So AFTV Live, tune in. Me and Robbie, 5 p.m. tomorrow. Cecil's back come the weekend. Arsenal are back Monday. So you're going to see all the previews coming out throughout the week. I've got Dan Lawless coming Thursday to record Box to Box. Box to Box is back. Forever Arsenal on the weekend. All of the content as usual. I'm going to get one more supporters club in before the Boxing Day game against West Ham. We'll discuss the importance of that and Brighton. Lee, love for coming on.
Man, it's been good, man. Listen, hopefully we can beat West Ham. Hopefully we're all happy and we go into the Christmas, New Year's, top of the league, man, still, because we need that for sure.
Cool. Martinelli signed the ting, Saka signed the ting, Saliba signed the ting, Kroenke signed some players. Over and out here. Love for the love. Hit the like button on the way out and support Lee. His channel is in the title. Peace, people. We're out.
Peace.